We got Mike McDaniel on the line from ESPN Blacksburg, Gobbler Country, and Inside the ACC. Would you like to add another one to your list of outlets, Mike?
I have a podcast with Joey Weaver called Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. Counterintuitive again, but we talk about ACC football there all year long. That's about it, though. That's about it, though, Mark, because I have a day job that's not in sports. So that's about as thinly stretched as I can be.
And we've got a bit of a trip back in time at North Carolina, where Mack Brown enjoyed some pretty decent success in Chapel Hill the first go around. We'll see what he's got in store for a program that needs some serious rebuilding, as North Carolina faces a pretty daunting schedule under the radar, looking out of conference when you talk about South Carolina and App State on the schedule. And it all starts off with that date against the Gamecocks.
Yeah, and that didn't go well for North Carolina the last time they opened against South Carolina. Marquise Williams threw a couple of red zone interceptions a handful of years back, and the season as a whole went pretty well for North Carolina that year. But when you opened up the year against South Carolina, you have Marquise Williams, a senior quarterback, throw a couple of red zone interceptions. That could have been better, Mark. That really could have been better. South Carolina's a tough team. They just lost by 4 touchdowns. They got shut out of their bowl game. They'll have 9 months to think about that before they play a North Carolina team in the opener that, will have Mack Brown, and we'll have an open competition at quarterback and all sorts of interesting things. South Carolina and Miami are your first 2 games for North Carolina. Don't like how that sets up. That feels like 0-2. At Wake Forest, that feels like a tough game on a Thursday. And App State, they have Eli Drinkwitz, the former North Carolina State offensive coordinator, as their new head coach. It's year 1 under the program for him, but App State has a pretty good team, and that should be a pretty competitive game. Mark, to be honest with you, that's a pretty tough 4-game stretch, and that's before you even think about North Carolina playing Clemson and on the road at Georgia Tech in the first 6 weeks of the year. That is real tough. Then you have a bye week at Virginia Tech, home against Duke, home against UVA. That's not going to be easy. Duke is probably a winnable game there. Don't love North Carolina's chances in Blacksburg. Don't love their chances at UVA or at home against UVA. Again, even though it's a home game, Virginia's good. Then you got a bye week. You're at Pitt, home against Mercer, and at NC State. I think NC State is pretty much a toss-up game. Pitt is a toss-up game. I think North Carolina should beat Mercer. This could be anywhere, Mark, honestly, from 2-10 to 5-7. I mean, this could be all over the place. We're talking about a pretty wide spectrum here as far as win expectancy for North Carolina. I just don't see a lot of wins on this schedule in year 1. You got a new system. You don't know who's going to play quarterback. Your first 6 weeks of the year are absolutely brutal. This is a very, very tough schedule for North Carolina. I have a really hard time seeing them get to bowl eligibility.